Hello there. I'm Dr. Arelia Johnson, and welcome to my Gender Master class. And this is the next iteration in the Language Liberation and Leadership Training series. Now, in this course, we're going to talk about a very sensitive topic, and it is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It is something that I have studied the last 15 years in my career, which is identity. More specifically, we're talking about gender. Gender is a sensitive topic for people who are learning more about themselves and are identifying and showing up in spaces that are outside of the gender binary. What does that mean? That means that they do not necessarily live as, identify as either strictly male or strictly female. And so, because of that, I needed to create a course to give us the language and some skills to be a good listener when someone is revealing themselves to you, coming out to you. Learn ways to be an ally, which is an intentional action that you take. It is not something that is rooted in a savior complex. Gender expansive people don't need to be saved. It is not an identity. It is something that you learn how to be. And as you're learning how to be an intentional ally for people who are gender expansive or find themselves on the gender spectrum, it is important that you give yourself grace and space because you're learning, and that you give them grace and space because they're learning as well. Now, because pronouns are being weaponized and politicized, because gender is being weaponized and politicized, especially in this particular political climate, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation that is being presented, right? And so you may find yourself searching for answers, right? And I'm here to tell you that it is completely okay. Times have changed, and so has the way that people identify. Now, when I'm talking about the gender spectrum, I'm talking about identities that fall outside of being strictly male and strictly female. There are people in the world who are born as and are assigned birth and identify as male, assigned female, identify as female. Those are cisgender individuals. There are people who are assigned male or female at birth, or are born intersex, and they do not identify as male, female, or intersex. Right? There are people in the world who are agender. They do not prescribe to traditional gender ideologies, categories at all. There are people who are gender fluid, right? They move in and out of their gender. There are two spirit people. And you can find more about these definitions and the lexicon in my five terms that we need to know when it comes to performing, when it comes to being gender. I think the other thing that's really important about this is that it's okay to ask questions. I think what is most important when we're asking questions about gender is that we're respectful. It is extremely important to Google, sometimes do the research, but then just to sit down and have a human to human conversation, a decent conversation, a conversation that's rooted in respect, right? That is really coming from a place of genuine curiosity and wanting to acquire the correct knowledge to make sure that you're able to acknowledge people, interact with people, respect people for who they are and how they're showing up in spaces. Now, three things that are really important when you're having a conversation with a gender expansive person is that you need to know when to listen. Sometimes individuals will come to you for advice or come to you to express themselves, and you want to jump in, like immediately you want to respond, right? A good listener listens to understand. They're not listening to respond. And that's one thing that is going to make the relationship, the interaction, the communication better, is to really listen. Sometimes people just really need to get things off their chest, and they need you to create a safe space for them. The second thing is knowing how to listen, right? And it's okay to ask the question, are you coming to me for advice? Are you coming to me for guidance? Are you coming to me because you need to vent? Are you coming to me because you need a safe space? And when you ask those questions of the individuals that's coming to have a conversation with you, then you're very clear about what your role is and how you're supposed to listen to them. And then it's also good to set boundaries, right, for both sides. So if an individual is coming to you and you're uncomfortable or you become uncomfortable, it's okay to say, I'm uncomfortable right now. I really don't know how to respond to you. Let me take some time to go away and think about this, and then we continue to have this conversation. And it's also to even say, you know what, I don't know what you're talking about. I really want to know what you're talking about. Can you provide me with some definitions? Can you provide me with, a place to go to do some research? Can you give me some time to think about this? So then we can have a healthy and informed conversation. And the last thing is really knowing how to respond, right? And so responding is, not really about your feelings. It's not about ignoring your feelings, but it's about being able to clearly hear what the other individual is trying to tell you, and then knowing if what they're telling you actually even warrants a response. And so it's very important to know when to listen, and how to respond, because that's going to help with the communication. For example, if you are a parent and your 16-year-old child has come to you to say, Mom, Dad, parent, guardian, I am experiencing some dysphoria and I do not feel comfortable in this body. I actually feel like my body is betraying me. And the way that I am showing up in the world, the way that I'm expressing myself, the way that I am doing gender is not congruent with what I am feeling on the inside. And your response needs really to be, so let's sit down and let's talk about this. Maybe you need to seek out, a professional, a counselor, an individual who is learned and researched in gender. Maybe you need to go to one of the organizations. So you can really hear what that child is saying to you, and then that child can hear your response. When kids are coming out, it is very difficult for them. A lot of kids who come out to their parents are disowned. They find themselves being homeless. They are abused. They are mistreated, and the space becomes very violent for that particular child. And what I want is for parents, even though you don't understand or you may not even agree, is for you to provide your kid with a safe space so they can show up fully in the world, and so can you. Now, what does gender variant mean? I have been saying gender variant this entire time that we have been talking, and gender variant means that this is a person that does not fall within the traditional binary, the orthodox. They don't look at the orthodox way of the traditional way of gender, right? They are not strictly male, they are not strictly female. They may be androgynous, they may be gender fluid, they may be transgender, they may be gender nonconforming, they may be non-binary, they may be agender. Um, there are a number of genders. You have two-spirit people, which is an indigenous term. You have people who may not figured out the vocabulary or the lexicon to actually truly identify or express who they really are and how they're showing up in the world. And you may see that. And again, it's scary. It's a lot of information, especially if you have been reared in a traditional context, right? Very Christian. I'm in the South, so a Southern Baptist kind of background. I grew up in a Kojic church. It was male, female. It was Adam and Eve. That was it. That was all. I realized that I grew up around some extremely homophobic people. and I understood the context of and the conditions that created that kind of homophobia. I understand the context and the conditions that create transphobia. And so I just decided that, as for me, and for my house, and from the children that I'm raising, and the type of person that I wanted to be, I know how oppression works and how it impacts me as a Black woman. And so I never wanted to create those kinds of conditions for other people. And so when you're talking about how do you allow people that have like the physical body of a man and woman, or boy and girl, be something else, you have to allow those individuals to come to you and to express that, right? I think the other thing that we need to talk about, which is rarely addressed, is an intersex child. Intersex births are like 1 in 1,000. They're more common than what we believe. And there has been some horrific stories about intersex children and how the doctor has made the decision about who that child is going to be when it comes to their gender. Um, and so that can be a very violent and jarring situation that has even caused some intersex children to unalive themselves. So we want to not create conditions of violence. We want to create conditions of understanding and respect. Now, according to the Mayo Clinic, most children typically develop the ability to recognize and label stereotypical gender groups like boy or girl, man or woman, masculine, feminine, between the ages of 18 and 24 months. And it's also that kids are able to even identify and categorize their own gender by the age of 3 years. Now, why is that important? That's important because there is, again, this misinformation, disinformation, uninformation, ill-informed conversations that are taking place about parents causing harm to their children because they're giving them gender affirming care. Gender affirming care does not mean that they have taken the child to surgically alter themselves. It does not mean that they have did some type of medical intervention, whether that's medication, they put the child on hormones. Gender affirming care means that they are allowing the child to show up in the world the way that they want to show up. Now, as we are moving through this, I think it is extremely important to reiterate why listening is key when having a conversation with a gender expansive person. Um, Gender expansive people, they're amazing people, but they also need support. And so again, we want to listen to understand. We don't want to listen to respond. We don't want to insert ourselves into the situation when people are actually trying to tell you about themselves. We want to repeat back what you heard. So mirroring is a good technique to use, especially when you're trying to really understand new information. So if your spouse comes to you and says, I am, born in the wrong body. I've been fighting this for the last 30 years, and this is who I am now. What you need to do is repeat back to them and say, well, this is what I heard you say. A lot of times what's happening is when we're having conversations with people, you may be interpreting the information, and that the interpretation is based off of, again, your living and lived experience, like what you understand, what you've been exposed to, and that may not actually be what the individual is expressing to you. So mirroring is an opportunity for you to repeat back what you heard, to be clear that that is what they're saying, and then you can have a conversation and a dialogue to make sure that the communication is clear. The next thing is, like, you want to ask questions, right? You don't want to be condescending. You want to be demeaning. You want to be very respectful, and it takes practice. Like, this good communication, regardless if the conversation is about gender or sexuality or identity, good conversation is hard, right? Active communication is hard because a lot of times we're not taught to be good communicators. We are taught to talk over each other. We talk over each other. We interrupt. We don't listen. We don't ask. We don't ask the right questions or the most appropriate questions to get to the information or to get to the understanding that we're trying to get to. So we have to practice this. So give yourself some grace, give yourself some space, and then go back and try to respond. One thing that is a good technique is for you to use a recorder. If you know that you are a person that has to process information, like me, I can't respond in the moment. I have to, take notes. I have to write things down, and then I have to go step away, and then I have to really think about what was being said to me, especially if it's a heated situation. I have to take a step back and say, okay, let me go be reflective. Let me really sit with what I'm feeling. Let me then separate what I'm feeling from what is being said, and then come back and have a conversation. Now, once we have now practice being a good listener, which is going to then lead into being a good and supportive ally. Now, here are four ways that you can support your spouse, your parent, your guardian, your child, your niece, your nephew, your cousin, a student, a person that's in your community. Now, an ally is someone who aligns with and supports a cause with another individual or group of people. Allies are intentional, they are about actions, they are conscious and cognizant and conscientious of actions that they can take without having no malintent, right? That they can sometimes cause harm. Allies take accountability. Allies are responsible. Allies are responsive. Allies know that they are always learning. Allies do not have a savior complex, and if they do, they check it at the door, right? Allies understand that sometimes, even though they do not have any type of bad intentions, that sometimes their behavior can be disruptive. It can be taken as being disrespectful. It can cause more harm than good. And allies would then give themselves grace because they're still learning. And then they will make every effort to be intentional about how not to cause harm again. Now, allies matter, okay? When you are an ally because you want to provide space, not pity people. You want to become more aware and you want to advocate, right? You really want to check your privilege, the kind of privilege that you have, and you want to use that privilege, right, to help all of the people that are around you, whether it's your racial privilege, your cisgender privilege, your privilege with being able bodied, your privilege that comes with a certain age, your privilege that comes with being cisgender, your privilege that comes with a certain socioeconomic status, with your education level, and then you want to be consistent. Consistency is key when it comes to allyship. It's not, oh, you just want to pop out in June when it's Pride Month and then you want to put the colors on and you want to be in the parade and you know what I mean? You want to be seen and you want to be a grand marshal and all these things. That is not allyship. That is not consistent. Allyship is 365 days a year. It is something that you do, right? It is something that you become, that becomes part of you, right? And then you understand that you're not a savior, that you're there to be a support. Now, here's a caveat with allyship. Sometimes you can't be an ally all the time, every day, all day, right? Allyship takes a certain amount of emotional, psychological, physical, mental investment. And sometimes you may have to just take a step back, and that's okay to do, but just be honest about why you need a moment to um, protect yourself, because you can be in a situation where you are working with kids, or you're working with teenagers, or you're working with adults, or you're working with seniors, you're working with veterans, or some specialized population of people, you're working with Black trans women, and the type of disregard and violence that they are experiencing can be a lot for a person to hold. And so you have to give space for what you're feeling, and you have to also like understand that rest is resistance. Okay, let me be clear. And that's the same thing for my folks that are in the LGBTQ community, right? We have to give grace and space for people who are showing up for us, but that does not in any way uh, keep you or what's the word I'm looking for, y'all? That does not in any way mean that you can excuse yourself. Like, it doesn't provide you any type of excuses to be a bad person. You can't just, then relieve yourself, right, of your social responsibility, right? Those are two different things. So being an ally is being a support, not a savior, providing space and not pity, being consistent, becoming more aware, learning, being curious, asking questions, if you cause harm, really being intentional about holding yourself accountable for that harm, apologizing for that harm, and then knowing that you have grace and space to do better, and then to advocate, use your privilege for people in spaces that they don't have privilege. Now, I was thinking about how can I use this racism scale, right, to really drive the point about allyship, right? And so there are ways that people show up, right? So from, are you being a terrorist, which you can be a terrorist to people based on their racialized identity, but you can also be a terrorist based on how people identify sexually, their sexual orientation, or their sexuality, and how people identify, right, with their gender. So are you being a gender terrorist? Are you being overt sexist, right? Are you being overtly homophobic or transphobic? To, are you trying to be a savior, right? Are you just trying to swoop in and make yourself feel better because you have some type of guilt? Or are you really trying to get to a place of like awareness and allyship and then abolitionism? Abolitionism is when you are just trying to get rid of the whole thing. You are a disruptor, a co-conspirator. Are you that? And be honest about where you fall on this spectrum. It's okay. Because as soon as you are honest with yourself about where you're falling on the spectrum, you can be honest with where then you need to go and what the work is that you need to do. Now, I know it's scary. Um, you're not alone. You got this. I'm here with you. You're taking this course. That's an amazing thing. You got people around you that love you. You got people around you whose lives really depend on like you being able to show up for yourself and for them, right? Lives are at stake because people are not able to show up as their authentic selves. Like, this really is a life or death situation. And we need to be very conscious about that. Be kind to yourself. The only way to be a true support is to learn, right? Identity is being formed and expanded and articulated in ways that are new and different. And it is scary. It is overwhelming. But you have people like me who create content like this. And so it'll provide you with another resource. And then stretch. Stretch yourselves. Don't shrink. If you don't know the different ways of using pronouns, Google it, right? You have she, her, hers, which my pronouns are she, her, hers. Forgive me for not saying that when I introduced myself in the beginning. You have he, him, his. You have they, them, theirs. And then I don't need you arguing with people about the appropriateness of using they, them, and theirs when you're talking about a singular person, because we interchange they and them for the singular and plural all the time. Or you have z and ver, and then you even have like the salutations that are changing. So instead of having ms or mr or miss or mrs or I think that's all of them. Now you may have mx, right? So just ask, right? If you don't understand when somebody introduces themselves and says, "Hey, my name is Arelia Johnson. My pronouns are she, her, hers," and you don't know why that they're doing that, just ask them, right? It is okay. What's not okay is if you shrink and then you make your world smaller and you're trying to make other people's world smaller at the same time. Now, let's talk about some data. What does the data say, right? There are 328 million people in the United States, and there are an estimated 1.4 million people that identify as transgender. Now, I believe that this number is an undercount because we do not do a good job at collecting accurate gender identity categories. We don't do a good job at collecting accurate data, okay? But we definitely don't do a good job at making sure that people's identities are accurately being captured. I will give a shout out to the U.S. Census Bureau, it has expanded their racial categories and who is also expanding their gender categories. But when you have things that are coming from the federal level, the state level, that is actually trying to force people into two very stringent categories based on biological sex, which then ignores intersex people, that in itself is problematic. Gender variant people are more likely to live in poverty. 29% of transgender people and cisgender bisexual women live in poverty. The majority of transgender people who live in poverty, who find themselves homeless, who are involved in the criminal legal system, are Black trans women. Black trans women are more likely to live in poverty, more likely to lose their job, more likely to have limited or no access to housing, employment, care, healthcare, and then gender variant people are less likely to be employed. That is across the board. But again, Black trans women are 8 times more likely, right, to be in poverty. They are more likely to have a negative encounter with the police. They're more likely to be killed by the police, right? So we need to be just aware of those things, and you can look up the Williams Institute for more data. When it comes to LGBTQ youth and homelessness, I alluded to this earlier. The fact is that 40% of youth, 40% of the youth are part of the homeless population, 8.4 times more likely to have reported attempting suicide, and then report higher levels of family rejection during adolescence because they are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, agender, asexual. Now, we have come to the end of this training. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for enrolling. Please leave your feedback for the course, and enroll in Gender 101. We really go in depth into all of the categories, the gender identities that I went into, and then we even talk about like sexual orientations and how those are showing up in the world. Again, my name is Arelia Johnson. Follow me and let's stay connected. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Blue Sky, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Spill, and I am on YouTube. And here is my saying that we always leave it, which is you don't need permission to lead from a place of truth. You just need language and a little audacity. I'll see you the next go round.